friends, welcome back. My name is Jessica. This is I Read to Relax, and I am here today with my July reading wrap up. I'm astounded the summer is almost over, honestly. And after a couple months of not struggling with reading, but fewer books, I am pleasantly surprised that I read 9 in the month of July, although one is a teeny tiny novella, but that is just a-okay. A couple of them were also crossover books, like I started them in June and finished them in July, but hey, if I finished it in the month, it counts in the month. That's the way this works. But anyway, I just thought I would share with you guys what I read, whether or not I enjoyed it, and let's dive right in. So one of the books that was a crossover from the month of June was The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. This is the third book in the first Mistborn era trilogy. So this finished out one of these series arcs in the Cosmere, and I can't tell you a lot because it's the last book in the trilogy, but it is chonky. And I will say, I've been struggling. I recently got diagnosed with ADHD, which it's been a lifetime and I didn't know I had that. I had apparently been coping with it well until recent changes in my life. And I've been a consistent audiobook lover my entire life. And so I had been listening to a lot of Brandon Sanderson's books, a lot of big fantasy books. And in the last 3 or 4 months, I've really been struggling with epic fantasy audiobooks. So I had purchased it's not a paperback, the physical book. So I listened to the first chunk of this and realized I was struggling. And it was because of the format. I really was interested in the storyline, really wanted to find out how things ended in this trilogy. I'm excited now to read the next arc, the next 4 books in the Mistborn world. But I definitely had to switch over to an actual physical book. My attention span is just not sticking with epic fantasy as a listening thing right now. So it was easier to sit down, read a chunk, come back to the book, read another chunk. It just worked better for me. So that's what we're gonna do for a while, at least moving forward. But this was definitely a 5-star read for me. The whole trilogy is 5 stars. Again, I can't tell you much, but I really liked how this wrapped up the story with that set of characters. And one of the other books that I read in the month is actually this tiny little novella, The Secret History. And this bridges Mistborn Era 1 and Mistborn Era 2. So again, not to give spoilers, this takes sort of the story of one of the characters from the first Mistborn era and lets you know how they're going to actually manage to be a character in future Mistborn books, even though the time span between the first Mistborn era and the second one is a couple hundred years. So I thought this was really interesting. I like that Brandon Sanderson tells these giant epic stories, and yet the storytelling can feel so different from one set of books to another. So the Mistborn, this first trilogy actually really reminded me of the Stormlight Archive books, which I read first. And I can see how this definitely influenced the Stormlight Archive books. But I've read Tress of the Emerald Sea and The Sunlit Man and some of those standalone-ish Cosmere books, and those have very different feeling storytelling. So I find it interesting and very like intriguing to pick up a Brandon Sanderson book and not quite know what I'm going to get, although I know it's going to be great because every book I've read by him so far has been great. So where am I in the Cosmere right now? The next plan is to dive into I'm either going to read Warbreaker, which is again sort of a standalone in the Cosmere, or I'm going to jump into Mistborn Era 2. I haven't decided quite yet. I'm going to hit some other series and then sort of circle back to Brandon Sanderson because he's got so many books, you always can. So another one that I carried over from June and then finished is actually this book, Seize the Fury by Silas Reams. And this ebook is the second full novel in the Carolina Magic series by Silas Reams, which is urban fantasy. And I really, really like this series because it is a spin-off of one of her other series, which I really loved, but it takes place in that same larger world. Like, it really focuses in on these new characters, and the main character, Lena, short for Carolina or Carolina, she has OCD, and I think the author does a really good job of sort of getting you into her mindset and showing how her mental health really affects all the aspects of her life. Like, she's constantly worried that her friends are going to be in danger, that something she does is going to harm someone. But as the series goes on, she learns to trust herself more. She's learning to lean a little bit on other people around her, knowing that they accept her as she is. And I just think it's really great. There are also like urban fantasy mysteries, so there's like magical subplots going on there, and there's the cutest little fire-breathing basset hound in this series. So yeah, but they're just really fun, fast reads, and I really, really love Silas Reams' urban fantasy writing. So I'm very excited for the last book in this series, which is coming out later this year. I also found over the summer with my attention span issues and I think just, summertime life, that I got into listening to a couple of thriller audiobooks, which has never really been a genre that I've gotten all that into. But I started watching the Good Girls Guide to Murder television series that Netflix did, the adaptation, and really, really liked it. So since the last season, I'm assuming it's the last season of the show, is going to be coming out and is not out yet, I was like, well, I may as well read the books in the meantime and see how they differ from the show. So I listened to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder in June, and I finished Good Girl, Bad Blood in July, which is book 2. Again, really had a great time, thought it was really well done. Really loved the show, really loved the books, like the changes they made between going both ways, and see why they adapted one, like they made certain changes for TV. And I am now waiting for the audiobook for book 3, so I'm kind of paused on the series at the moment, but that gave me the opportunity to listen to Jackson's adult thriller that came out, I think, last year, Not Quite Dead Yet. So I also listened to this one in July, and the concept for this one is really cool. So the main character gets attacked and suffers head trauma and has been essentially told by the doctors that she has a week to live. Like, she's going to end up with an aneurysm because of her brain injuries. And so inevitably she's not going to make it more than the week. Well, our main character decides she's going to investigate her own attack, her own murder. I will say it was very entertaining. I didn't feel much of a difference between the young adult books and the adult book, which is not bad. It's just that I thought there would be more of a feeling of difference between the main characters, but character in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series is older teenager. And even though the main character in Not Quite Dead Yet is supposed to be 27, she sort of feels like she's regressed because her life has sort of fallen apart. And so she acts like a very young 20-something. So again, they don't feel that much different. I also think that Holly Jackson is really, really good at writing a unlikable character. Interesting characters, but not really likable. So in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, one of the side characters in the book series was truly unlikable, felt very unredeemable, but you end up feeling sorry for her because of what happens to her. In Not Quite Dead Yet, our main character is somebody that it's very hard to like. And there were moments where I wanted to hit her upside the head and be like, hello? Are you picking up the social cues, the signals that this other person is giving you? No, you are completely missing it. It felt like she was kind of an idiot at certain moments, but then made connections and solved clues and things that other people didn't quite, so yeah. Now, I also find that it reminded me of how, like, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes character was brilliant, but largely a douchebag. So, similar vibes. Not to say that she's Sherlock Holmes, but, just that same, like, you get behind them because of what they're able to do in terms of solving the case, so to speak, but you're like, I would not be friends with this person. So that's sort of my takeaway from that. I do think I will be reading more Holly Jackson in the future because just entertaining, very entertaining, and I really like doing them as an audio experience. It felt kind of like watching a TV show. In either May or June, I think it was June. Nope. I don't remember. I do not remember. I do not remember when I actually read The Rose Bargain. It wasn't that long ago. I really, really enjoyed it. I really loved The Rose Bargain. So I picked up in July The Thorn Queen by Sasha Payton Smith, which is the other half of the duology. And I loved this as well. Again, I can't really tell you too much because it's the second book and it closes out the duology, so I don't want to give spoilers, but the setup for the first book is that there is an alternate England where the Queen of Fairies came from the fairy realm and sort of saved England in a war and decided to become the new Queen of England. And she, in doing so, made an agreement with the British people that every British citizen would get to make one fairy bargain in their lifetime. So as the years have gone on, what has sort of become custom is that when girls debut, when they have their season and are of marriage age, they, as part of their coming out, make a bargain with the Fairy Queen And so a lot of them will bargain for a prettier face or better piano playing skills or something that will make them more attractive on the marriage mart. And the queen, based on her whim, will ask for a toe or your sense of taste or just a couple fingers in exchange. However, when our main character goes to take her season, make her debut, the queen announces that her eldest son is now looking for a a bride. She's going to be the next Queen of England, also his fairy bride because he is a fae. Any woman who is debuting that would like to be eligible to compete for this High Prince's hand in marriage must sign a contract stipulating that if she does not win the prince, she can never get married. So our main character takes the chance because she needs to elevate her status. She's trying to redeem something that happened to her sister years before, and competes for his hand. The first book takes place in the human realm in England, and I love a delicious mix of balls and court politics and all of that with dark, mischievous, fairy mischief. And that's what that book has. The second book continues that and takes it even a step further when our main character and several others end up in the Fae realm in book 2. And that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil anything other than just saying we get to see even more fairy mayhem, which I love. So this was great. I love this duology. Really, really enjoyed them. Thought they were a great time. I'm going to be looking out for more by this author as well. Then I talk about duologies. I did a reread, and I don't reread that often. I'm trying to give myself permission now to go back and reread books that I really love. I have a few series that I do reread every few years because they're books that have really, really shaped sort of me as a person, me as a reader. But I usually listen to them as audiobooks rather than physically reading them because I always have a pile of new books I want to read, and it was easier to find the time to like listen to them in the car or whatever so that I could read new books in bed at home or whatever the case may be. So I have been giving myself again permission to like go back and reread something I really enjoyed. So the perfect excuse came for me to reread Nightshade by Autumn Woods, which I obsessively devoured, because Daybreak came out in July, right at the end of the month, and I knew I had to read this as soon as it came into my possession. So I read this one, then I read this one. Obsessed with both of them. I did a really short video briefly touching on these, which you can look back and see posted. But this is a duology that takes place at Sorrow Song University, which is a fictional college in the Scottish Highlands for the rich and elite and like people that come from the kinds of families that send their kids to one specific type of school so that they then graduate and go into whatever field it is that they're going to be in. So there are like families of prestigious doctors that send their kids to the school. There are politicians that send their kids to the school. There are royal families that send their kids to their school. And there are mob families that send their kids to this school. So this book setting is like the ultimate modern dark academia, mob-infused vibe in the Scottish Highlands. So then you have this Gothic setting on top of that modern feel. And it's got a true Romeo and Juliet feeling vibe. I ate this up. Our main character goes to Sorrowsong University after her parents have passed in a tragic accident because she's determined to prove that this CEO that owned the company that her parents owned, the company of the helicopter that her parents were flying in, was involved with their deaths. On day one, she meets the son of this helicopter airline tycoon and immediately, vehemently wants nothing to do with him. He's put off by her attitude, but they are both inextricably also completely drawn to each other. So they are like obsessed with each other, even though they kind of want nothing to do with each other. They're trying their best to stay away from each other. Then, because drama, our main character ends up with a stalker, her roommate gets, and Alex, the boy, ends up like coming to her rescue in a small way, and then they end up inevitably becoming inextricably linked as things go on. Loved, devoured, ate up the drama vibes in book one. Book two took that up a whole nother notch and then layered in all the family, heartstring tugging, delicious, emotional depth on top of that, and broke my heart into little pieces and then built it back up again. So I cried in both of these. I also wanted to throw things at times in both of these, and I will definitely read them again in the future. Yeah. Obsessed. Obsessed. Cannot wait for more from that author. The very last book that I finished in July was something completely different. I have had this book for a little bit, and I was looking for something that was just going to be something I could sort of read like a little chunk at a time, something visually interesting. So I decided to dive into Taylor Swift style in the month of July, and I love fashion. I love Taylor Swift. I'm unapologetic about that. And what I thought was really cool about the theme and the structure of this book was that it is written by a fashion blogger, and she actually documented and theorized how, as Taylor Swift was leading up to each album's release in her backlist and now the Eras Tour, like, she's not only written different styles and utilized the lyrics to catalog different parts of her life, but that she's also very specifically designed a different fashion era to match each album. And she really does document how her style changes with each album, how things still feel very Taylor all the way through. The girl never loses her love for sparkle. She loves bright colors. She mixes high and low fashion, so very expensive pieces with inexpensive pieces, but how with each album and the maturing that she does as a person, growing, you know, as she ages from like 15 to 30 something, you know, her fashion reflects what she wants to present for that album to the public. So I thought this was a really interesting book, and I just love looking at like celebrity style, and I find certain celebrities people that I would like to emulate in different ways. I definitely have certain eras of Taylor's fashion that I enjoy more. And it was just really interesting. So I'm glad I read this one. This will probably be one that I'll keep to flip through again. But yeah, it was a fun way to end the month because it was something different. I'm trying to read a little bit more nonfiction this year, so this was a really fun one to add into the mix. So that is all that I read in the month of July. It was a pretty great reading month. Again, I had carried over quite a few books from June that I just didn't get a chance to finish. I finished those out in July. I did have one that I actually DNF'd. I sadly was trying to finish the Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig, and I liked One Dark Window, but I didn't love it the way that a lot of people seem to love it. Like, I was ho-hum about it. And then I started Two Twisted Crowns, and I found it was just not holding my attention at all. So sadly, I did decide to DNF that one. I might come back to it eventually. I would be curious to see sort of how that series ends, but it just wasn't clicking with me. And like right now, with me struggling with like my attention issues and things, I was like, I need to move on. I just need to pick something up that's gonna pique my interest instead of trying to force myself to finish this book. So yeah, I did put that one aside. So we'll see if I pick it up again someday, or if I just decide to completely DNF that duology. But yeah, that's a decision for future Jessica, not today. So I hope you had a great reading month in July. I feel like it was peak summer vibes, and yeah, I hope you got some fun stuff in there. And leave me a little comment. Let me know if you read and loved any of these. And let me know if you love Two Twisted Crowns and I did not, and you think I should pick it up again. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so you'll get notified when I post new videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!